Yep, to the yep. You already know what time it is, man. It's your girl P.O.C. Turn your radios up, spread the word, spread the message. Each and every Friday, starting at 10 a.m., bringing you, yes, you, that greener, safer Philadelphia conversation here on 900 AM WRD 96.1 Word Radio. Today is Friday, October 25th. We're already at the end of the month. Next Friday is going to be the 1st of November. To keep emphasizing this is because I'm truly shocked by how time is moving right now. But you already know we have a jam-packed show for you. Yes, you, everything we do, it's a FUBU effect. We want you to be a part of the conversation. We want you to join in. You can see my face as well as my guest, beautiful face, right now on Word TV. Click that link in the bio to take you directly where you need to be. You can always join us. Call in 215-634-8065, toll free 1-866-361-0900. And you can always listen to us in your Apple stores or your Google Play stores by just simply downloading the Word Radio app today. And tell a friend to tell a friend, because this is the place that you need to be. I got a special guest on the line. She's not new to the show. She's family. I'm excited. We're always highlighting the work that she's doing in this environmental space, especially in the Philadelphia region. She's doing some amazing work. Shout out to Billy Penn. They just celebrated 10 years, their 10-year anniversary. We got journalist Sophia Schmidt on the line with us right now. Sophie Schmidt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's everything? When it comes down to just the work that you're doing, I always want to make sure we highlight it on the eco word. Again, you're not new to the show, but I do want you to always properly introduce yourself so people know exactly who they're listening to.
Totally. I'm Sophia Schmidt. I'm a reporter at WHYY, and I cover climate and environmental justice.
Yes. 10 years, Billy Penn. How was that? Crossing the threshold with them. How was that anniversary for you?
It was great. Yeah, I covered it. You can see our coverage on billypenn.com. And yeah, it was the Billies Awards, which are some awards that Billy Penn has given out in the past to notable Philadelphians, brought back last night. It was really fun.
That's exciting. And to see people who are actually boots on the ground doing the work get rewarded for that is always an amazing feeling, especially when we're able to cover the work that they're doing on a daily basis. So shout out to Billy Penn and all the journalists putting their pens to the pedal right now, and making sure that people's voices and stories are being told. But Sophie, you got a lot of work going on, and I want to jump right into it. You know, you just recently wrote some articles. I want to actually start with this EV conversation, you know, and surrounding Philadelphians who might get in trouble if their EV chargers are not working. You know, picture facing a fine because of your charger not working, right? We're living in a really different time. About a week ago, Elon Musk just dropped his whole robots, you know, just showing people like where technology and just innovation is going in general. So when you think about just EV cars, you know, electric vehicles, being in the city, more people are actually driving electric vehicles. More people are actually utilizing the hybrid vehicles as well nowadays. Just overall, your thoughts, you know, on electric vehicles before we get into the conversation. What are your thoughts on electric vehicles currently?
So it does seem like you mentioned it's more people are driving them. There are, at this point, I actually looked up the stats. It sounds like there are over 6,600 all electric cars in Philly. And you mentioned hybrids
Wow.
too. That does not include hybrids. So yeah, there are a lot of them in our city. But as you mentioned, I was doing some coverage about EV chargers recently, which we can get into. But yeah, from talking to EV owners, the overall consensus is there's just not enough public chargers, not enough charging period in the city. So that seems to be like the biggest headline on EVs right now.
And I would definitely be upset if I'm trying to better the earth, better my community, better my city, and I just want to get down the street and I'm unable to do that because there's no charging stations or the charging stations are not working properly, right? And then to be fined for that is a different kind of conversation. So I understand why people are blowing back against it. So talk to me a little bit about this story.
Yeah, so the fines you mentioned, this is some legislation that was passed by council recently. They actually passed a previous version early in the summer. And then this was kind of like a redo, like tweaking some of the enforcement to make it simpler for L&I, and pushing back the enforcement date. So this one goes into effect in April. And basically what it does is it allows the city to fine property owners that have electric vehicle chargers on their property that are not maintained in working order. But the key thing is that it only applies to properties with more than 10 parking spaces. So
Mm.
like, just a row house, like homeowner won't have to worry about this. If you have a charger at your own house, you should be good. If you're a renter, you should not have to worry about this. This would, like I
I
said,
hope you're not charging your car if you're a renter.
right. I have seen some of the, like, people will put the extension cord out the window.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so this is just for like those bigger property owners. It applies to all types of properties, so like residential, so it could be, a big apartment building where there's parking and there's chargers, commercial, industrial, and it's a $300 fine. So if L&I comes, inspects the chargers, finds that they don't work, they can cite the owner $300. And so this is basically just trying to fix this problem. Like I mentioned, EV owners say that there's not enough public charging, private charging. There's just not enough charging in Philly right now. And so if you can imagine, you're like, you need to basically charge up your car. There's very few available. The one you go to is not working. That can be a big issue. And so what I've heard is it's like there's many ways that they can not work. It could just be broken, like structurally, or it could be an issue with like the payment processing. So it sounds like, there's different apps you can use. Obviously you can pay with a credit card. So if the internet's down or something like that, that can mean you can't charge. So this would apply to any way in which these things are not functioning.
And that's actually a crazy way to look at, the fact that when we are utilizing these electric vehicles, we are utilizing technology, and most of the technology runs through data, right? So you need Wi-Fi in order to truly get things done in a very timely way, especially when it comes down to payments, if it's an electronic payment, right? So I can see the frustration being at a pump, and you just literally and you got to sit there for hours at that, right? What some cars take 2 to 3 hours to charge, like, so you're already sitting there waiting for your car to charge, and now you have the issue with dealing with the pump not working, or just the payment situation not technically working because of the Wi-Fi being down. So that is a huge issue. But when I was reading your article, what I got out of it is that the city is trying to reduce its carbon emissions to promote using, cleaner transportation option. And I recently had SEPTA on, and they're actually switching to electric buses as well. When you think about just reducing the carbon emission, and people choosing to, I guess, utilize cleaner transportation options, right? Cleaner and safer. How should I say this? Cleaner and more safety as far as around what we are looking for, as far as reducing the carbon footprint and what we're putting into the air, right? So when it comes down to these chargers having so much issues, or so many different issues, I guess, when it comes down to the stations, do you think that people are going to start to push back a little bit? And I'm sorry for that long-winded question. I just wanted to make it sound a way in which it was relatable to the people who are listening. So what I'm asking, Sophie, honestly, is, do you think people are going to start to push back against utilizing the EV vehicles because of the issues that come along with it?
I mean, I do think that if you can't count on reliable charging, why would you buy one? So I do think that, like, it's all kind of chicken or the egg. Like they talk about, oh, like, charger development follows the number of people who need it. Like, if there's demand for it, it makes more sense to build chargers. But the flip side, if there's not enough chargers, how can you feel secure in buying an EV? Is some of what I heard. And I mean, to your point about pushback, this wasn't exactly what you're asking, but one point I did want to note is that I've heard some concern among EV owners that this bill we're talking about, with the fines, could actually disincentivize property owners from putting in chargers in the first place. So obviously, if you're thinking about, is it worth it or not putting this in, if I don't happen to maintain it and I'm going to be charged $300, does that kind of change the calculus? So I talked to the council member who sponsored this, Nina Ahmed, and she first off thinks that this is not a big enough disincentive, that it would actually change the game. She's confident that, for example, like the owner of a apartment building or something like that, that's thinking about putting in chargers, see them as an amenity, and that in itself is enough of a sort of motivator to install them. But she's also planning to introduce some legislation that would actually set a minimum. So if you have a property with more than 10 parking spaces, a certain number need to be EV charger ready or have chargers installed. So I'm not sure when that's coming, but she did say she's planning to introduce something like that.
I definitely hear that, because that would be something if I was a property owner, if it's something that's causing me a headache, I would actually try to go away with it because I don't want the headache. But at the same time, I do want to have the incentive and the amenity, like you mentioned, for my residents to be able to park their car because as we know, Philadelphia is a street parking city. So to be able to have a parking lot for your residents and to actually be able to create a space for them to charge their electric vehicles, I think that is a huge plus for a city like Philadelphia. And then, we talk about the thousands of cars, that are driving thousands of people that are driving electric vehicles now in Philadelphia. Do you see it actually reducing the carbon footprint that people are talking about as far as the emission?
That's a great question. I could get some actual numbers on the portion of Philly's emissions that come from transportation. I don't have those at my fingertips right now, but um obviously there are emissions associated with the electricity that power electric vehicles, and that is like an argument that you'll hear. But that kind of electric grid emissions tend to be less than the emissions from the tailpipe of a gas-powered car. So electric vehicles are seen as, a climate solution of sorts. But there are other ways to get places that have fewer emissions than gas cars, obviously. Like transit's a good option. You mentioned SEPTA has, electric buses that they're working on. Trolleys are electric. There's also biking and walking. So the city has sort of the city has actually made sort of a policy decision that they've told Billy Penn that they are focusing more on these sort of more equitable modes of climate friendly transportation, like walking, biking, transit over electric vehicles.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you know this, but this is something that I was looking into as I was just trying to find out more information about just EV cars in general. One thing that I learned is that the battery in the EV cars are made with lithium batteries, and
Mhm.
it's not necessarily healthy for our environment, and it's actually mixing and mining with more material like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. And as I was doing my research, I was trying to figure out like why are these things, not necessarily healthy for our environment and things like that. So when you think about people charging their cars, the battery not necessarily being as healthy, and then just the overall obstacle of getting to a pump where you can sit for 2 hours and feel safe to actually charge a car, because I think that's another thing when we talk about just the overall environment to where these things are placed. I know one right now is in South Philly on the new Wawa they just made coming off of 76, and just the line to get in there is ridiculous. So I feel like EV cars are, yes, it's the future, it's the way to go because I'm super green, right? I'm pushing the green, but at the same time, Sophia, I feel like it causes so much environmental congestion for a major city like Philadelphia. What's your thoughts on that? Just the lines for the backup as far as trying to pump, and then also just the safety around sitting in your car for 2 to 3 hours in a city that people deem is not safe, like the city of Philadelphia, even though our violence is decreasing every day. Yes.
I mean, you bring up a really good point about like the critical mineral mining. I know that's a big issue, kind of, an argument against electric vehicles. I do think like, transit's a great option. Like walking and biking might ultimately be better than like personal vehicles. But Philly's a very car-centric city still, so I don't really know what the answer is. I don't know like what role they need to play amongst these other modes. But yeah, I heard in talking to some EV owners that there can be lines for the chargers for sure.
Yeah. And I want to ask you like two more questions regardless when it comes down to just what the general public is talking about, right? I know that you spoke with some EV drivers. What are their concerns? Do they have major concerns surrounding this? I know you talked about the way if which we put the fine on it, it can actually take people away from it as far as not even want to choose to deal with the amenity. But what else are they talking about as far as the general public?
One of the EV owners I talked to was also kind of skeptical of the city's ability to actually enforce this. So because I mentioned there can be like multiple ways in which a charger's not functioning, it might not be like super visibly broken. So I guess it kind of remains to be seen to what degree L&I is testing these things when they're inspecting, but he was, mentioning if you don't have the right app, you might not immediately be able to tell that this thing isn't working. And so that might be a limitation to actually enforcing it.
Mhm. And L&I getting involved is something that the city actually pulled them in to do, or is this something that L&I actually went to the city to talk about?
I actually don't know the answer to that question where it originated, but LNI, a representative of LNI did testify during the committee meeting on this bill and said that they're prepared to enforce it. So it definitely seems like they're on board. I'm not sure if it originated with them.
And this legislation has actually been pushed through, has been approved. This is something that can happen like right now.
Yes, it was passed and then the mayor actually signed it as well. So it goes into effect April 1st.
April 1st of 2025. That's good
Mhm.
to know. So for people, if you're listening right now, you're driving your electric vehicles, or you are a business owner or someone who is creating space for these electric vehicles chargers to be installed, please make a note. Starting April 1st, you may possibly be getting fined if your electric vehicle charger is not working properly. So please make sure you're doing your due diligence to make sure the residents have what they need in order to make sure we are pushing for a safer, greener Philadelphia. And Sophie, before we go to a quick commercial break, you mentioned the mayor, right? So the fact that she signed this, I'm grateful she did that, but this must be a part of her vision for a cleaner, safer Philadelphia, that green Philadelphia she's also pushing for as well. So when you see, her commitment to choosing efforts, it could be something small, but it could be big to someone else, as far as the EV situation. What's your thoughts on that? The fact that she signed off on this?
It wasn't a big surprise because she signed off on the previous version that passed in June. So I guess that was to be expected this time around.
So it's pretty much it's going along. You feel like it's going along with the agenda that she's pushing for greener, safer Philadelphia. This is just a start.
Yeah, like I said, I think it sort of remains to be seen what her administration, how they will like pursue transportation, decarbonization more broadly. But yeah, this does seem to align with cleaner, greener.
All right, I feel you. We're about to go to a quick commercial break. Right after this quick commercial break, you'll hear more from journalist Sophia Schmidt here in the city of Philadelphia. Sophie, please tell them how they can find you, stay locked, and how they can actually find that EV article as well.
Yes, this is all on whyy.org. So you can find all my coverage there and specifically this article about the EV charger maintenance law.
We'll be right back. It's your girl P.O.C. Each and every Friday, starting at 10 a.m., bringing you a greener, safer Philadelphia. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the WURD newsletter so you can check out everything that we have, from exclusive interviews, recaps, and more. We'll be right back. It's your girl P.O.C. Radio Zap.